I'm clearly on a rampage about VR FPS games recently. Contractors, Breachers, even Veil, despite how poorly that game was received. Pavlov is basically the unofficial standard of a VR FPS game, and we all know about it. Love it or hate it, there's always a reason to hop on Pavlov. Whether or not you're a complete toddler running around yelling racial slurs in TTT, or someone's dad trying to relive the glory days of VR in 2016, Pavlov is for everyone. I'd almost consider it to be the baseline for other VR FPS games to build off of. Everything from weapons to joining a match to even being called sus from a kindergartner. Everything is just as you would expect it to be. But for the most part, the community has been split into two, with the PC VR community and the Pavlov Shack community. Both games don't have a huge difference between the two, despite the complete lack of being able to use snipers on Quest. This reminds me of Dr. Phil with its bald head ass. But recently we've gotten a little update as to new players joining Pavlov in the form of, dude, I promise it's a new game, okay? It's a third-person, story-driven game. It's nothing like we've seen before, dude. But I personally don't believe that this is a good thing. Yeah, I like Pavlov, but don't get me wrong, I would much rather see other VR FPS games coming to PSVR 2 first over Pavlov. If it's not Chris Bumstead in a tactical vest wielding a lightsaber, I don't want it, Mom!
Open the door. Open the door.
This is a small message. Join the Discord. Check out Patreon. Look, I added more options. There's $1 roll now. So cool. Because this might be some people's first time looking into VR gaming, I'm just going to touch base on a few things about Pavlov to get an understanding. If you're clearly a professional esports athlete of Pavlov, then let's get to the time code here. Pavlov released on Steam on February 27th, 2017, and I would say became pretty popular rather quickly. Even people like me at the time who didn't own a VR headset knew about this game. It sparked tons of memes and viral clips all over at a time when VR was still inaccessible to most. Originally developed under VR Shooter by Dave Vills on Twitter, it quickly grew into a full production team under Bankrupt Games. Like I said before, the game is now accessible to PC VR and Quest users under App Lab, and has very minor differences, again including Dr. Phil over here. The gunplay is the baseline for getting guns right in VR. Everything handles as you'd expect it to, and I'd imagine that the PSVR 2 version with its haptic triggers will only help to complement that feeling. Of course, Pavlov thrives off community-made content just like the rest of VR shooters, which is where you'll most likely run into game modes of Trouble in Terrorist Town, maps similar to that of DayZ, and creators like Happy147 and Swagger Souls really kept this game afloat for a while. If you're looking for an all-in-one shooter game, you've came to the right place, pal. The VR Shooter Saloon has you covered. We have Call of Duty Zombies, not just from one game, it's any of them, pick one. We have Counter-Strike, we have Halo, you name it, and it's probably going to be on Pavlov in some way. This is the reason why people still play Pavlov to this day. Being that it's still free for now on Quest 2, you can borderline do anything you can imagine, all while in the immersive nature of VR. But wait a minute, the Quest 2 version doesn't have the workshop add-ons like the PC version does. Custom content is only available on PC, right? How's this gonna work on PSVR 2?
The Earth says hello.
Although I really wish we didn't have the physical reality weighing us down at every step, I am really looking forward to the PSVR 2, and I'm not even buying one. I'm just really glad we'll be able to finally get some competition with the Quest 2 and eventually the Quest 3, because the amount of features this headset has blows the Quest 2 out of the water. I did try the original PSVR, and it wasn't really my thing. You could basically simulate the same experience if you took the Valve Index, took a giant shit on it, and had a singular base station to track you. Sure, things like Beat Saber or games that only had you face one direction wouldn't be too bad, but VR for me includes being able to turn around and interact with the world in every direction. I personally believe PSVR 2 will show people who don't like VR that it holds some of the best games imaginable. Never mind just Pavlov. The day Into the Radius goes on PSVR 2 will be the day VR haters will weep, because holy fuck do I love Into the Radius. Running to the top of a sniper tower, taking out the guy inside to fill up on ammo while smoking a ciggy is something people can only dream of, and I hope PSVR 2 can bring that to people. Of course, I would have liked having a wireless option. If we haven't gotten a portable device from Sony in over a decade, at least use that knowledge towards a fully dedicated Quest 2 competitor. The cost of entrance is also pretty steep considering the PS5 and headset sold separately, and people like me can't just go to the store and just pick one up. In the nearly 3 years since the PS5 launched, I have seen one time where a PS5 was in stock at Target. I have never been this lucky since. I should have put all my money on coins that day. My luck would have been insane. Now, what am I getting at here? The PSVR 2 does look like a really nice headset to compete in this market, so what's the issue, Papa Viewie, master of VR and all things virtual reality? Like I said before, Pavlov Shack doesn't have the same workshop that PC VR has, and with this update to PSVR 2, it's said to bring crossplay between versions. But does this mean we'll finally get a dedicated workshop to the likes of Contractors? I'm not saying it's impossible, but if we haven't had Titanfall weapons on Hijacked from Black Ops 2 and Pavlov, then we might as well just wait for Contractors to come to the platform. Also, you remember how I said minor differences? There is one map in Pavlov that has been changed almost completely on the Quest 2 version, that being Container Yard, and what the f happened here, Bankrupt Games? This looks like a goddamn Play-Doh museum designed with the idea that you and your friends can run around in clown costumes killing each other. With the trailer showing the PC version of this map for PSVR 2, What differences are we going to see fixed in the crossplay update? Why shouldn't someone just wait for contractors to come to the platform instead of dealing with this shaky game that may or may not get features gutted? Of course, with this update, I am glad to see crossplay being added at all. Even if we don't get maps or custom content, the PC VR player count for Pavlov makes it a tough sale on Steam when it's borderline free on Quest 2. But the Unreal Engine 5 update, while being massive, does make the game run better for me at least. I would like to see more features when it does fully come out. Like how I've been waiting for months to see any sort of customization in Pavlov with no announcement of that feature in sight.
There are no rules, man. We're lost.
No.
Should you as a PSVR 2 user end up purchasing Pavlov? Should you purchase Pavlov in 2023 despite the platform? For me personally, it's a nice starter FPS game in VR, but something like Contractors just pulls it off better with already dedicated crossplay, an official workshop that works on all platforms, and has some options like full body that only work to enhance that experience. If you're really into CSGO style of gameplay, of course I'd recommend it, but if you're looking for modding potential, I just wait for Contractors. But we'll have to keep our eyes on Pavlov for now.
How's it going? Yeah, I just woke up, and this kid named Viewie, he's begging me to give my opinion on some game, Pavlov.